I'm the moderator of this session. I'm a Brigadier General Sakhawat Hussain. Uh, uh, Currently, I'm at the North South University in one of the institute known as South Asia Institute for Policy and Governance, and I'm a senior fellow there. I was in Election Commission of Bangladesh in 2007 to 2012. Today, what we are discussing is Burma Faultline, which is now known as Myanmar. And I have two very prominent guests. One, our guest in coming from neighboring country, India. The other one on my left is ex-Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh. I would invite them to introduce themselves. It would be better that they do introduce themselves to the audience. Thank you very much, Professor.
I am Professor Karori Singh, former Director and Emeritus Fellow, South Asia Studies Center, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur, and I'm here in Bangladesh in the conference on Bay of Bengal conversation.
And on my left is ex-Foreign Secretary. Let him introduce himself.
My name is Touhid Hussain. I was Foreign Secretary. Of course, before that, as you understand, I had a long career in the Foreign Ministry. I retired in 2014. After that, for about 2 years, I taught at the Independent University. Now, well, I write something and speak something. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Mr. Touhid. We are discussing the topic that's been given is the Burma Faultline. And many of us would be not very familiar with the name Burma. Once upon a time, this name was very familiar to us and the rest of the world. Burma is today what we know is Myanmar, which is one of the neighbor of Bangladesh, and it's in the southeastern neighbor of Bangladesh. We don't have very big common border. That's about 179 or 80 kilometer, but a very important border, particularly is bordering Chittagong Hill Tract and the part of Cox's Bazar district of Bangladesh. But what it borders is the Bay of Bengal, and this is one of the prominent. Myanmar is one of the prominent country which shares a large stretch of Bay of Bengal. It's around, if not less, it's around 1,800 kilometers of the shore, and it touches up to the Indian Ocean. And on the other side is India, which also shares Bay of Bengal. Then we have Sri Lanka, which shares Bay of Bengal, and then of course we have Indonesia, and of course, if you can call it a part of Bay of Bengal, is Singapore. So Bay of Bengal, when you're talking about, I would say to me the major three countries which is sharing Bay of Bengal, and geopolitically and strategically, Bay of Bengal is very important to these three principal countries, particularly Bangladesh. On the east is Myanmar, and in the west of Bangladesh is the Indian shore. And it definitely connects with Indian Ocean, and we know how important is the Indian Ocean. How this Myanmar has come into play in Bangladesh, internal and external politics, and now are graduating into geopolitics. And it is, though there has been historical evidence of the Rohingyas coming into Bangladesh, but in 2017, when almost 1 million or 1.1 million Rohingyas were evicted from the old Arakan, which is now known as Rakhine State, from their homes, from their land, and they were mercilessly executed, persecuted, and we now have sheltered in Bangladesh is about 1.2, because by 6 years they have increased, and they have become a big issue for Bangladesh internal politics, external relations, particularly the very complicated geopolitical situation coming up. This is what we are going to discuss. Then we have, of course, various countries' interest in that area, which is complicating the Rohingya issue that Bangladesh is facing now, and it delaying the repatriation of Rohingyas, which we must talk about. There's the interest of India, there's the interest of definitely China, and their interest of the Western countries, particularly USA, who has 2 years back formulated and declared a policy which is known as Burma Act, supporting the liberal democratic process in Myanmar, which has been decades under the military rule, which is still under military rule. Therefore, to open the conversation on these lines, and of course the significance of the Rakhine state particularly, an internal situation of Myanmar, I would invite the professor from India to discuss, to open the discussion, and then of course, then we would go to Mr. Touhid and further his ideas and his thoughts on the issue. Sir.
Myanmar is located in such a situation which we call the Golden Triangle. So the China, Bangladesh, India have concern about the Golden Triangle. Golden Triangle means Laos, Thailand, and Myanmar, and that poses sometimes the security challenges, and then creates underworld and drugs, narcotics, and these things. That is the one part. But Burma is politically unstable as well. Where China politically stable, Bangladesh politically stable, India politically stable. So the instability of Myanmar affects all the three countries, and these countries have some interest in the Myanmar as well. Bangladesh directly doesn't have much interest, but China has largest trade partner of Myanmar. At the same time, China has a geostrategic interest to link India, Bay of Bengal, then Indian Ocean in the maritime route as a part of Belt and Road Initiative. On Indian side, India has also some strategic and geopolitical interest, because India want to have an opening of maritime route for northeastern states. So the China and India are competing in the Myanmar situation, and the internal situation is so stable. So China and India both are not able to serve their interest appropriately and suitably. Because during the military rule, India did not take much interest, but did not criticize on the military rule, and openly did not advocate the democratic system in Myanmar, whereas China supported military rule because of various reasons. So in the internal situation, Myanmar remained somewhat unstable, economically backward, and the ethnic crisis continued for a longer period of time. But the second decade of this century was more optimistic, where some transition took place. The new constitution was adopted, and apart from the new constitution, a triple transition took place. That is, planned economy to the market economy, then the ethnic and the social conflict was little bit reduced, then economy improved, and the poverty, which was 48%, that was brought to 25% in Myanmar. So the Myanmar improved in the second decade of the century, but third decade again the military junta took over the power, and the crisis has been deepened. And because of this crisis, they failed to manage the Arcana state. And the Arcana state, there are two main communities, that is Rohingya and
Rakhine.
Rakhine. So the Rakhine are nearly 2/3 of the population. The Rohingya are nearly 1/3. So the Rohingya are mostly followers of the Islam. So conflict is continuing, and I think more than 7 lakh Rohingyas right now in Bangladesh.
In total, we say that's about 1.2.
Oh, so Bangladesh is bearing the burn, though the United Nations and some agencies are cooperating. But now the problem of Bangladesh is how to repatriate. Quite often,
Right, sir.
the border skirmishes are taking place. So Bangladesh find it difficult to open the dialogue and repatriate the refugees for its own stability.
All right.
Right.
Thank you, Professor. I would like to just stop here and then switch over to Mr. Touhid Hussain. My question to you, sir, that now that we find a different kind of geopolitics is coming up, particularly with the announcement of the Burma Act, we find the one, as the professor said, the Chinese are having that BRI, as I say, their eastern port is Kachiapu or Kikiapu, whatever you may call. And then they have invested so much through the pipeline. And then we see that India is also having a two-pronged sort of communication. One is the road, which is going to Thailand, and the other one is their Kaladan project, which is very much going through the Rohingya area. And then Burma Act. How do you see, sir, that the complication, geopolitical complication, is rising this part of the Bay of Bengal, which is definitely complicating the Rohingya repatriation and Rohingya issue?
Thank you, sir. I look at it in this way, that this is one issue in which really the Chinese and the Indian interests have not conflicted much. There is a modus vivendi between the two regarding Myanmar. And we have indirectly been a victim of that, for which none of these countries have come to our aid because they have interests in Myanmar, particularly China. As you have mentioned, that for China, the route to the waters of Bay of Bengal and beyond, you think of Africa, you think of Europe, Middle East, it is actually through the Bay of Bengal. And Bay of Bengal entry for the Chinese is, for the moment, if you think of the present situation, it's only through the Malacca Strait, which is a choke point and which in a conflict situation can always be, threatened. So for the Chinese, the best guarantee of their maritime commerce is through Myanmar, through the port of Chakpo, and maybe other ports will also come up. Now, because of that, China is completely in support of all the misdeeds of Myanmar. The second thing is that China, because of its political system and international relations theories, it doesn't care whether there is a democratic government or an authoritarian government. Rather, China would normally be more comfortable with an autocratic government because that is more akin to their own system. Now, this is a situation in which China has given some lip service to Bangladesh but has not done anything substantive to help Bangladesh repatriate the Rohingyas. And some time back, there were initiatives to make a token repatriation. And I have always said that this token repatriation would only help Myanmar to, spruce up their image that no, we are trying to repatriate them, etc., etc. It's not going. Yes, just a PR exercise for them. It will be, and China has supported that. But the real problem is the repatriation of the huge mass of Rohingyas that China has not taken any step or any step to help Bangladesh. India, well, not as vocal as China or as active as China, but then unfortunately we also have not had the Indian support on this issue because India has, you see, when the genocide was going on, very high Indian dignitaries visited Myanmar and did not say a word about this. And subsequently also, Kaladan project and the connection to Thailand could be important.
Mori Road, I believe.
Yes.
So, but then I would love to hear from you how this Burma Act is seemingly is Burma Act creating a more problem, or the Burma Act says that they are supporting the liberal democracy and the democratic forces within Myanmar against the military regime. And they, if not directly, it hints and indicates that they are going to support some of the ethnically armed organization through the moral support and the non-lethal support. Do you think that also further complicates the issue, remembering that Arakan is also under threat of EAO, and that is Arakan Army, though they are not so far aligned to say with West. It is alleged that they are part of the Chinese influence.
I think, sir, it's pretty complicated. It's pretty complicated because the Burma Act would like to see democracy flourishing in Myanmar, and then a democratic government, a true democratic government. I would not consider the government of Aung San Suu Kyi to be fully democratic, because the parliament was in the hands of the military in any case. She could not do anything there.
Yeah.
And it was during her rule that the worst pogrom against these people took place. Because 2017, she was the real political boss of Myanmar. So that didn't work out. That didn't help the Rohingya. True democratic atmosphere with rights for all would, of course, be positive for the Rohingya issue, and of course for the general people of Myanmar also. Now, is that coming up? The only thing is that after the military coup, the latest military coup, the NUG has been formed,
Yes.
the National Unity Government. It is representative because it's mostly the people who are elected by the people, the representatives who are elected by the people. So we should consider the NUG to be a democratically elected government, rather than the criminal regime that is now ruling.
This is an exile.
ruling Myanmar. They are in exile. To my mind, they deserve much more support from everyone, particularly the West.
Okay.
They should be recognized as by some countries at least. If not, we cannot do it because of our situation. But then there are other countries who can do it. Should be recognized as the legitimate representative of the people of Myanmar, given support, and there is some effort to unify the various, these
Years.
insurgencies into some sort of still not a very cohesive force, some sort of a national military sort of thing. And I think that Bangladesh should also look at this in this way. The other complicating factor is the Arakan army.
Yeah.
They are neither here nor there. They are almost independent, and they are at this moment perhaps the most powerful insurgency in the country.
In Arakan.
In Arakan, and as a whole also they are very powerful.
Yes.
And they are active there. I think both the West and Bangladesh need to open channel to both the Arakan army and give support to the NUG. NUG is the only organization so far in Myanmar which has recognized
Yes.
the Rohingyas as such,
Right.
and spoken of their rights
Right.
and citizenship.
To some extent, I find even the Arakan army has talked about, they didn't say Rohingya, they said that Arakan Muslims. And
Okay.
Okay. Sir, if I may put a question to you, we have been considering, rather we consider India is our very close and very friend who has helped us in our difficult days. But India, that now we find that we thought that India would definitely come up to settle this issue, which is very much humanitarian issue, and of course a burden on Bangladesh, and which may over the years could spill into something else and create a problem for the whole the region. But we didn't find, sir, the Indian foreign policy or the Indian leaders accommodating that thought in their process while dealing with Myanmar.
You see, I would like to raise one or 2 points. The first is South Asian countries are having a very difficult international borders, because in this region, the countries of the region, the international borders, socio-cultural boundaries and frontiers are not coinciding. They are overlapping kind of things. The communities are divided through international borders. So that makes the things very complicated. And that is why recently the Manipur crisis in India, some kind of insurgency, the fighting between cookies and matai, not only religious ground, but there are different regions. So the Indian investigation agency has discovered that these insurgents or the problem in Manipur right at the moment, the people have linkages in Myanmar and Bangladesh both.
Yeah.
And they have identified certain persons that, and they are getting support in terms of raising fund and weapons and all these things. So India is deeply concerned. And at the same time, India is concerned about the development of the region. And that is why there is a trilateral initiative having road from Thailand, Myanmar, connecting Indian northeastern state. Then again, extending that to the Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. So it may be India's strategic interest, at the same time economic interest. Strategic interest is to counter the Chinese influence, and economic interest to expand the India's trade. So India is active, but in India, Rohingya is the issue. Some of the Rohingyas penetrate to the Indian side as well. And Indian domestic politics, this issue is very important. There is a mass sentiment that Rohingyas are having some terrorist links and they are hatching some conspiracy to for the terrorist activities in India. So Indian mass sentiment is altogether different.
Right, right, sir. Last, we are almost in the fag end, Mr. Touhid Hussain. My concern, if you could put some ideas on it. So, what do you see in future? I've always been telling that this problem is not going to be solved in 10 years' time. Now it is almost 6 years running. How do you see that Bangladesh coping up with this problem in coming years? And do you see any possibility of these people going back to Myanmar at their home, which they have the right to in very, very near future?
Sir, to start with your last word, near future, no. You said 10 years. From the very beginning, I have been saying 15 years. And I suggested that there should be a plan of 15 years to send them back. So that at the end of 15 years or thereabout, the Myanmar authorities are compelled to take them back. Unless they are compelled to take them back, they will not take them back. Unless, of course, a huge internal change takes place in Myanmar in which democracy and rights of people flourish. Only then it's possible, but that is also not forthcoming very shortly. So we'll take time.
Since we don't have time, I will just put another word to you. Sir. That is, do you think that Bangladesh should think other options than just bilateral, that we are going on almost like bilateral? Other options like NUG and the NUG government and the others?
Openly or not, let us be very frank, we should have an opening to the NUG. Maybe not openly, but then we should have a clandestine, if necessary, opening to NUG. And I sometimes very reluctantly say one thing, that I'm a student of history. I haven't seen one instance in history where such a problem of genocide has been resolved
peacefully.
Positively and peacefully. It has not been resolved. It has always been through conflict.
What about Kofi Annan's commission report? I think that
the report was doubled. The report was made public, and within 1 week, the genocide started.
Yeah. Okay. I think we are out of that, almost out of the time. This is a very burning issue as far as Bangladesh is concerned, and also, to my understanding, and as I understand from very two prominent speakers, and my own understanding, that we are seeing a kind of a complicated geopolitical scenarios which are coming up, particularly a contestant issues that coming up between India and China in all front. And I believe that we are in between that contest of the geopolitics within the region. And outside the region, of course, the Western countries are also more or less being dragged, or they are coming into the whole thing. So overall, the Bay of Bengal situation in one particular issue, that is the Myanmar and the conflict within the Myanmar itself and the conflict with the neighbors is definitely making Bay of Bengal a hotspot, a geopolitical hotspot, one of the reasons of the geopolitical hotspot. I'm sure you both would agree to that, sir. Would you agree to that?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
You
Thank you,
agree?
Yeah.
And thank you very much, the viewers. We have finished, and I very gratefully acknowledge the contribution you made, sir, and of course the contribution you have made. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.